All right, we're ready.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Maram. Let me just. Okay, Maram, from your side, you can also start the recording. All right, over to you, Sajid Toastmaster Mariam. Over to you. We're ready to go.
Thank you to moderator. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, leaders, Toastmasters around the world. We welcome you to a workshop where you will learn how to conquer your contest. I'm Toastmaster Mariam Rangat, President of KLTM and Pathways Manager for District 20, your Chief Sergeant at Arms for today's meeting. A few ground rules before we begin. Workshop. Kindly make sure that your device, either laptop or phones, are well charged and you have stable internet connection. Please keep yourself muted, and known participants, hide behind your virtual backgrounds as we would like our connections to be smooth. Kindly refrain from any side chats in the chat box, especially when the workshop is on or a trainer is giving a speech. For any questions, kindly send a message to our Master of Ceremony. Let's all read the district mission. We build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. Now, let me introduce our Zoom moderator.
Is she frozen?
Seems she is disconnected or has a low connection.
You introduce yourself.
All right, so this is Toastmaster Faisal. I'm Division H Director, District 20. I'll be moderating you and assisting you during the whole session. With this, now it's time to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, one of the person who is shining star today, who will host the whole session for you guys. He's none other than a champion in not only in speaking, evaluation, table topics, and whatever he does, he's champion. So let me introduce our Master of Ceremonies today, none other than he is a prince, yes. Toastmaster Prince George, our Master of Ceremonies. Over to you, Toastmaster Prince George.
Thank you, DTM Faisal, and you have truly exhibited a live example of how table topics needs to be done in virtual Toastmaster meetings. So, well done, and you took over control really well, as self-introduced exceptionally well as well. Thank you so much. I will take it ahead from here. Thanks a lot.
I'm
Good
back.
evening,
Okay, let's start.
aspiring contestants, role players, judges. Welcome to this grand district initiative of Conquer Your Contest, being organized by our very own dynamic powerhouse, District PQD, DTM Alifia Lakdawala. All our fellow Toastmasters have toiled all year to sharpen the axe, to accumulate superlative skill sets that would steer them ahead as top-notch public speakers and leaders. And the contest season is that time of the year when our members put in their skills to test, as some would like to excel in communication, while some would like to excel in leadership. Ensuring that each contestant puts his or her best foot forward and competes with class justifies all the time and efforts that have been put in into this learning process. I'm sure you all agree with this. All the three factors, the contestants, the role players and judges, and the eligibility criteria are the three pillars of a successful contest. Ensuring that each role player excels in the task allocated to him or her accentuates the quality of the contest, smooth and organized flow of events. ensuring that the right panel of chief judges and judges evaluate a contest, satisfies a contestant when he is evaluated based on his or her performance and is then guided by mentors on the scope of improvement, which is a learning in itself. Who all can judge? Since we follow the core values of Toastmasters International, it is important to know who is eligible to take up a judge role. Empowering our potential judges with the right knowledge and training in judging ensures that deserving champions represent our district. We all know how important that is. Who all can be contestants? If any member plans to compete this year, it's also important to know who is eligible. Is your club in good standing? Are you a paid member? Are you in good standing? Is a club newly chartered in your area? How many participants can move from club to area? Can I participate in 2 areas? So many questions and more questions can be covered during the training session today with your active participation as well. The new era of virtual contests are nothing but a mirror effect of the physical contest. Internet stability, standard speaking area, pinning the timer, familiarity with Zoom, factors that need to be kept under check. We will all learn it today. I wish you all the best in the spectacular event to steepen your incredible learning curve at Toastmasters. Before we go ahead, I would like to introduce our key role players for the day, our timers. Timer 1, Toastmaster Vishwanathan Bhaskaran. He's been a member in Toastmasters International since 2007. Currently the member of Bahrain Indian Club Toastmasters and Pravasi Guidance Forum Toastmasters. He calls himself a servant leader. He has served different clubs, areas, and divisions. And he has served all 7 office positions more than twice at club levels. He is also the upcoming District 20 Event 2021 member as one of the Head of Education Committee members. Put your hands together for Toastmaster Vishwanathan Bhaskaran. Our second timer, timer 2, is Toastmaster Siggy Lal. Toastmaster Siggy has been in Toastmasters for 4 years, is a member of the Palakkad Toastmasters and Krypton Advanced Club. She is the current PR head of Division D, works as the research associate with Al Arayat Eye Center, Bahrain. Motto, always try to be positive. Timer 1, Toastmaster Vishwanathan Bhaskaran. May I please ask you to read out the timing rules for the event today?
Yes. Master of Ceremonies, district leaders, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Today we have 30 minutes presentations. First, Toastmaster Madhavi Tiwari from 6:40 to 7:10, that means 30 minutes. Once 20 minutes are over, I will display the green display beside my background. Once 25 minutes are over, I will display the yellow display beside my virtual background. At the end of the 30 minutes, the red display will be appear. As per the request from our presenter, Toastmaster Madhavi Tiwari, she need a voice instruction. Once 20 minutes are over, then need to mention that 10 minutes are left. Again, at 25 minutes are over, I will highlight that 5 minutes are left. It will follow for the remaining presenters as well. DT from Geeta Panuchami and DTM Rohena Akil. And the last presenter, DTM Ahmad Rizvi. All the presenters are same sequence will be followed, and 50 minutes question and answer session. At 13th minute, green display will be beside my virtual background. 14th, there will be yellow. At end of the 15th minute, red. These are the timing criteria for today's event. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Vishwanathan. Just a small question. The first two trainers, as far as I'm aware, they have a timing of total of 40 minutes, 30 minutes speaking, and 10 minutes Q&A. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
All the four presenters are equal timing, 30 minutes, 20,
Okay.
25, 30. And all the question answer, 15 minutes, 13, 14, 15.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Thank you, Timer.
Welcome, sir.
Sorry, if I'm not mistaken, 30 minutes for the presentation and 10 minutes for the Q&A at the end of the presentation.
That's correct.
All right. So
Timer?
Timer, I think
so-
there's a
so I-
slight change from the initial plan, I suppose. So the first two speakers will be having 30 minutes speaking time and 10 minutes for the Q&A. Please mark them on your timing as per that. The
So
remaining
you could
speakers will
go
as per
at
schedule.
20, yeah, sorry, Toastmaster Prince. So
Go ahead.
Mr. Timer, you could go green at 20 and
Okay.
amber at 25 and the red background at 30.
Yeah.
And then for the 10 minutes Q&A, you could go 7,
No, 8, 9, 10.
oh,
Better.
right, 8, 9, 10.
So
better.
this was not mentioned in the agenda, and I didn't get the instruction from anyone of
It's okay.
our team.
It's
I
not
requested,
your,
but I didn't get the reply from.
we understand. That's all right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Timer.
Thank you.
Thank you, DTM Geeta as well. Thank you so much. Well, now it's the time to start the event. Now to introduce our amazing trainer for the Chief Judges category. She has been a passionate Toastmaster since 1997. She defines her life as the mother of a lovely daughter. Chairperson of the District 79 Education Committee 2004-2005. Chairperson Education Committee DTAC 2008, DTAC 2017. Chairperson BTAC 2007. Presented dozens of educational workshops on chief judging, evaluation, creative writing, and English language skills at the district, division, area, and club levels. Has been a chief judge about 70 times at all levels of speech contests. Designed, organized, led, and participated in a number of panel discussions. A keynote speaker, has been a mentor for many clubs, masters in English and in education. Trained bankers and other professionals in leadership and management skills for more than 7 years. Currently works at the University of Bahrain and thrives on teams and revels in joint progress. Co-authored 9 books published in the UK, writes newspaper editorials and poems, performs in annual international poetry festivals. Need I say more? Put your hands together for Toastmaster Madhvi Tiwari. Over to you, Toastmaster Madhvi Tiwari.
Thank you so much, Master of Ceremonies, for that introduction. And everybody can interpret and translate when he said, need I say more? That means there is nothing more to say. But that was very kind of you. So Master of Ceremonies, officials, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, a very good evening to you. Now, my time today is limited, as you heard from the timer, and your time is very precious. So I'll go straight to the talk, which I've been assigned, about a few aspects of chief judging. I'll start sharing my screen now with you. And as I share my screen, I'll be talking about a few things. So let me see that everything is working and everything is fine. I hope you are able to see the screen. Master of Ceremonies, would you kindly let me know if you're able to see the screen?
Yes, Toastmaster Madhu, it's visible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now about this first slide, I have two things to say. The first is my apologies to the PQD. PQD has sent a format to be used by all the presenters. And I'm extremely sorry not to go by that request, but it is for a reason. It's simply because I choose all my slide designs for a reason, for a purpose. For example, this one particularly I've chosen for this workshop with this design because I want everybody to notice that this line on the side, on the left side, is a straight line and it looks very smooth and nice. This is how contests are planned. We hope that everything will go fine and in a straight line. However, more often than not, there are some stray strands which appear suddenly or sometimes expectedly. And it is the role of the chief judge to straighten those stray strands. So I think this design just symbolizes the whole philosophy. The second thing I wanted to say about that slide was, I think I have just kind of, the art, chief judging is an art, it's a skill and it's a force. I won't say anything about this now, but I hope I remember at the end of my talk, I would like to just point out why I call it an art, a skill, and a force. Now, before I go into different aspects that I want to talk about, I just want to say my thanks to a few sources for a few things. So, for example, the motivation for me to be so passionate about this role came from DTM Matthews P. Kurian, whose workshop I attended way back about, I think in 2000, 2001, that long back. But that's what motivated me about this particular role. Then, of course, all the rules verification is done through the normal sources, the speech contest rule book, and my personal correspondence over the years with the officials at the Toastmasters International. And of course, I have gone through the frequently asked questions. They give you a lot of information and the best practices for online speech contests. Now, this is the agenda, a 6-point agenda that I have in mind for today. I would like to point out 3 qualities of a chief judge, which probably you don't expect a person to talk about. Why qualities? But you will probably agree with me that a chief judge does need some specific special qualities for a few reasons. Then I'd like to talk about 5 true case scenarios. Some of them were experienced by me, and some of them were experienced by some other chief judges who have shared the scenarios, but they're all true. I would like to point out why a chief judge. What is the importance of a chief judge? Then, of course, duties of a chief judge at various stages of the contest. Very importantly, pre-contest briefings, which to me are the meat of this role. And as the Master of Ceremonies has mentioned, we will have a 10-minute question-answer session. Normally, I love to take questions anytime during the talk. That's what makes me energized about the presentation. However, our online format is such that taking questions while I'm talking can get a little messy. So I apologize for this, but do have some questions for those 10 minutes. I may be asking you some rhetorical questions only, just to trigger your thoughts, but I would take the liberty to answer them on your behalf here and there. So let's start with the qualities of a chief judge. First of all, I would like to take note of this little picture that I have put there. You see how this man is really stretching himself to full capacity. And that's exactly what a chief judge needs to do, has to do, is obliged to do, to really stretch to all capacities, skills and knowledge, and art, as I said. So first of those three qualities that I have in mind, of course, these three are not the only qualities, but these three are very special to a chief judge's role. Thoroughly informed. I mean, really updating yourself with all aspects is really, really crucial. I'll give you two very quick examples how it can make a difference. For example, for decades, for about 2 decades, I had known that there are only 2 protest criteria, and those are originality and eligibility. And I was almost getting complacent about this. However, recently, thank God for this habit of mine that I always read all the updated information. And I discovered a new criterion, and that is referencing to another contestant's speech or speech material. Now, if we don't update ourselves, we will miss out on a lot of things. Similarly, another very amusing example is, I think till date, lots and lots of people, especially contest chairs, they announce that there will be 1 minute silence between speeches and 2 minute silence at the end for the judges to count their ballots. No, for many years, it has been at the end. It is not restricted to 2 minutes. It's till the judges complete their ballots. Now, these are very minor. They sound minor, but if we don't update ourselves, we may miss out and take wrong decisions. The second quality is courage. You will see especially when we are discussing scenarios, you will see how a chief judge really has to take some very bold decisions at times. And if we are weak-hearted, it's not possible. And of course, communicative. Now, of course, we are in the communication business, but a chief judge has to really maintain a lot of communication channels to be effective. So clarity and precision of communication is very important for a chief judge to have. And if a chief judge has these three, probably you are ready to be a chief judge. However, there is one thing which I would like you to note, that integrity is the foundation of any quality. So that goes without saying. So let's move to the case scenarios. I'll give you a few seconds to just read it. Now, the question, just to trigger your thoughts, that in this kind of scenario, who could have changed the above obviously undesirable result? Was it the Toastmasters International or the event chairperson or the chief judge? And I'm sure all of you know the answer, the chief judge, but I would like to really even clarify how. See, in this scenario, there was a plagiarized speech, there was a proper protest, but what had actually happened, this was my personal experience at one of the DTACs when I was a judge. I was not the chief judge. I was one of the judges, so I know what exactly happened. Now, the chief judge was not well informed enough. So what the chief judge did, he saw the protest and he asked the contestant to provide evidence, and obviously the contestant did not have the evidence. So the chief judge said, well, your protest cannot be accepted, and it was not taken up, and the results remained unchanged, which was extremely unfortunate. It was a plagiarized speech which won the first place. Now, if the chief judge was knowledgeable, he would have known, it was a he, so I know. So he would have known the process of resolution of protests, that once a protest comes for originality, there is no evidence required. However, there is a process to be followed. And that process is to call all the judges and then first call the contestant, communicate to him that this is the protest, and if he has to say anything, and give him a chance or her a chance to whatever he or she wants to say. And then after the contestant leaves, then a voting is done amongst the judges. And the voting is either to accept or not to accept the protest. And it is decided by majority of the judges' votes whether the protest will be accepted or not accepted. Now, that is the process. If that had occurred, most probably this scenario would have changed completely. And that's why, I can't stop emphasizing that being extremely well informed and updated is very important for the chief judge. Now let's go to the second scenario. Take a second to read it, please. Now, this is an entirely different scenario. And I have borrowed it from DTM Geeta's experience when she was the chief judge. A tie-breaking judge could not log. You know there is a tie-breaking judge. That judge is anonymous, and that's the only one traditionally whose ballot can help, or it does help in breaking the tie. But in an online contest, the tie-breaking judge could not log in. So there was no tie-breaking ballot. And as luck would have it, there was a tie. Now, who was responsible for this? The appointed tie-breaking judge, the chief judge, tally counters? Of course, the chief judge, right? So I had heard DTM Geeta say that she would take the precaution of appointing 2 tie-breaking judges, which is a very good idea. That's what I normally do in any scenario, virtual or otherwise. I always have enough backup with me. Now, what happens that, so in this case, it's advisable that the chief judge takes this kind of scenario in mind and has 2 tie-breaking judges, so that if one can't log in, the other is there. Now, however, one may argue that suppose what will happen if both the tie-breaking judges can't log in? That is a possible scenario. What all with this naughty technology? So I will share a secret with you. You may probably kill me later for it, but I'm honest. Even in physical contests, what I have been doing is to have one of the judges, to take one of the judges in confidence and request him on a personal basis to give all places instead of just the 3 places which a normal voting judge gives. So give all the places so that in a very drastic scenario, I still have a tie-breaking ballot. So those are the kind of things a chief judge needs to be proactive about. Now let's see scenario number 3. Take a few seconds to read the scenario, please. Okay, as you see, this is another absolutely different scenario. A contestant attends a briefing, but then loses connection. So what does, of course, event organizers don't have the authority to do anything. Toastmasters International is not involved in your contest. So it is the chief judge who will have to take such decisions. So, in this case, if I am the chief judge, then what would I do? If it's a table topics or evaluation contest, nothing can be done. If a contestant loses connection and loses the opportunity. We really cannot give any other opportunity in these contests. However, if it's a prepared speech, international or humorous speech contest, then we can give a very, very small window. Now, what kind of window we can give on a humanitarian basis, if I may use this expression? So the contestant couldn't log in at his or her turn, but can log in after one or two speakers. So probably we can still give that contestant a chance. But of course, if he can't log in till the entire contest is over, then there is no point at all. Because even in the best practices for online contests, TMI also refers to give a reasonable amount of, they don't specify, but they use the expression reasonable amount of time for some such delay. But these kind of decisions a chief judge can make only if the chief judge has those three qualities. Otherwise, it will be very tough to make these, because these kind of decisions have to be made very instantaneously. Let's go to our next scenario. Now, this is a very dicey scenario. And this is where the boldness, the courage of the chief judge comes into play. But here in this scenario, I have especially taken the liberty to share for a reason. It's not only this particular scenario, it's the whole table topics contest and the choice of the topic, etc. Now, first, let me talk about that a little bit. Now, everybody knows that according to the speech rule book, the contest chair selects the topic, period. Now, people go on debating and discussing who should and who shouldn't select. We really cannot debate because TMI has specified that it's a contest chair. However, we haven't lost everything. I will share with you what I do when I am the chief judge for the table topics contest. As soon as I know that I am the chief judge for a table topics contest, my first communication is with the organizers, and I ask the head of the education who is selecting the topic. Some of them, of course, ask me to select, then I tell them, etc., etc. But that I do so much in advance. Then I suggest to them that when you choose a contest chair for this contest, try to make sure that the contest chair is not from the club of any of the contestant. Borrow a contest chair from somewhere else. That kind of excludes to a very large extent the possibility of mistrusting a contest chair. I'm not saying a contest chair from a particular club will be dishonest. No, I think 99.9, or I would even dare say 100% of us are honest people. But it's good to appear to be honest as well. So as a chief judge, I always recommend to the organizers to choose a contest chair from a neutral.
20 minutes are over.
Okay, all right. So these kind of scenarios, and if this kind of scenario still happens, we have to cancel that particular contest and take another decision how and when to organize, maybe immediately, maybe on some other day. But that contest cannot go on if it has been leaked. Now, I will skip this slide, but I may come back to it if we have time, because there are other things to do. Now, why a chief judge? There are three special reasons. As you have seen from the scenarios, chief judge is instrumental in making crucial decisions. It is a chief judge who, by way of briefing, ensures that various key players are prepared and they deliver their duties. So when we say chief judge is a showpiece, that's a very, very kind of limited perception. And then, of course, chief judge has been bestowed by the Toastmasters International with the power to make the above two possible. So a chief judge has a lot of authority. Now, it's not on my agenda to go into the qualifications. I just wanted to point out a recommendation. This is only a recommendation by Toastmasters International also, but considering the heavy responsibility, please don't take up a chief judging role if you haven't attended any training. So now, duties of a chief judge. This is the first and foremost duty of a chief judge. Diplomatically but firmly let no one interfere with what you know to be correct. But you have to be sure of it first, because you are responsible for and in control of the contest. Now, what exactly, I will go through it very fast because all of this is available on the speech contest rule book. Selecting the judges and ensuring they're qualified, fair, and competent, contacting them, clarifying all the relevant points with the contest chairperson, preparing the forms, ensure the availability and functionality of all relevant equipment, and the briefing. Now, for all briefings, I really recommend to have a clear agenda. And I'm going to show you a sample of the agenda that I always use at my judges' briefing. And during the contest, of course, to be observant all the time is very important. Then you collect the time record sheet. And as I explained earlier, resolving protest is a very huge responsibility. Overseeing the counting process for accuracy is a very, very important responsibility. And then to give the results. After the contest, we really need to dispose of all the documents. Please do remember this. Courage is very important. Don't hesitate to stop the contest if something is not going right. We just are not meant not to do things when things are not going right. Now, selecting your judges, I'm not going into it. Only I would like to recommend that please use your past experience with various judges. Keep a log of it and ensure that you're selecting judges not for the sake of it, but to make the results dependable. These are the various forms that a chief judge has to prepare. These are, of course, this is all available, so I don't have to elaborate. Now, these are the briefings which need to be done. And let me show you the agenda that I prepare for the judges' briefing. And I distribute this agenda and we discuss all these points. You can just have a quick look.
25 minutes are over, 5 minutes left.
Thank you so much. I'll just pause for a few seconds. I can share this agenda with anybody who's interested, but having a clear agenda helps. For telecounters, lots of briefing is done, like how to identify judges, the telecounters sheet, collecting the ballots, counting room procedure, how to award the points, computing the total, double checking, verification by all counters, recording the results, and breaking the tie. So a lot happens in the tally counting room. Then timers, both the timers have their own role, one to time, one to display the signals. They need to know the speech timing very clearly. In a contest, we cannot make mistakes. I would like to just tell everybody, point out, start the contestant's time. Of course, we all know with the first verbal or non-verbal contact, but in online contests, once a contestant is ready, he or she is supposed to say ready. Now that ready is not counted in the time. So all these minute things the timers really need to be briefed about. And when we say 30 seconds grace period, it is only for the technical failure of the timing device or the timing signal, and not for anything else. Your full attention all the time is important. Now this bullet, when the results are being announced, a chief judge, along with the tally counters and timers, has to be very careful that the results are announced correctly. If there is a mistake in the announcement of results, we have to stop it and correct it. So any emergencies at any point of time in a contest, that's summarizes a chief judge's job, tackle them promptly and fairly. I would like to add knowledgeably as well, because you are the conductor of this entire orchestra we call a contest. So it is the art, the skill, the force. So I think you have understood the skill and the force part. Why I call it an art? Because I have seen some chief judges making a lot of noise when they have to do something. The art of a chief judge lies in being absolutely calm and quiet and do whatever you need to do, however bold it is, but do it very subtly and very tactfully, without really ruffling the whole entire environment. So that is the art part that I wanted to talk about. So that was what I think my time is over and I had to rush through many things. My apologies for that.
No,
So
2 more minutes. 2 more minutes to go for you.
2 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you like to see? Maybe you would like to see agenda once again. Okay, let's start. I'm sure I'll be able to speak more when you ask me questions. But of course, I don't make promises. Any questions you may ask, I just may answer if I have an answer. So you are most welcome. Mr. Moderator, you may like to pass on the...
Madam Madam DTM Madhavi, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I am DTM Ramkumar. I have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you once again. You said some relative time. If there are any technical glitches, relative time, how much? Because some time need to be allocated. Do you have? Do you advise us?
I'm so sorry, I missed the very first few words. So I'm not clear what exactly the question is. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. I'll repeat it again.
Yeah.
For whatsoever the reason, the contestant have some technical glitches due to which
glitches,
technical
okay.
glitches, and in between he gets interrupted because of network issues. But relatively, we need to allocate some time. How much time do you think, in general, we can allocate?
Right. Yeah, as I
waste time.
mentioned, in the best practices, TMI says give reasonable amount, but they don't specify. So
I
what
know that.
I would interpret it as giving like probably 3 to 4 minutes, but we cannot really afford to give more than 5 minutes, for example, if left personally to me, because it will then kind of disbalance the entire contest. And it may affect the other contestants. So if it were left to me, I will not give more than 5 minutes. And that too in the prepared speeches scenario, humorous and international, but no time at all for table topics and evaluation.
Thank you very much. Second question I have is,
Yeah.
because prepared speeches you mentioned about in your presentation, somehow we had a problem, he couldn't join, and you said that you used the word humanitarian. That's a nice word. I liked it. You said you can create a small window for him. What about the speaking order? Suppose he's the contestant, he's just missed out, but he's contestant number 3, but he just joined. How you can figure it out? Where do you place amongst 8 contestants or 5 contestants?
See, yeah, that's a nice question. Since there is no specific rule about it, in that case, I'll find it convenient to make him the last contestant, because to fit him in between when our 4th contestant is getting ready will not be fair to the 4th contestant. But that also will depend on how much disturbance this technical glitch has created. If it hasn't, yeah.
If I am a contestant among them, if I'm an 8th contestant, if I'm a 6th contestant, maybe I protest it because I would like to be end. I would like to be the 8th contestant. Why him? What if this
No.
question arises?
Correct. You are right. Your question is valid. But let me tell you that no contestant has the right to be the last contestant. You also got your order by fluke, right? It was randomly organized. However, if you have a serious objection, you can see it's not included in protest. This is not one of the protest criteria. So not as a protest, but as an objection, if you reach the chief judge, then at that time, chief judge will have to take a decision. Now, if I were the chief judge, my decision would be placed on how much honesty I perceive in that technical glitch. If I perceive a lot of honesty that it was a serious glitch and it was not a district level contest, it was one of the club or area level contest, I'll still give a chance to that contestant.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm done.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
DTM Madhvi, we have Toastmaster Dinesh. Toastmaster Dinesh, you may ask your question.
Yeah.
Good evening, DTM Faisal. Already I messaged to the DTM Madhvi.
Okay, let me check it out. Slide 15, you mentioned that be vigilant on your feet, especially back of the room. Can you elaborate more on this? Okay, I also had a slashed point because this one is for a physical contest. At some places, I have seen chief judges sitting at a place, maybe in the front, one of the front rows or something, from where they cannot observe what's going on in the entire hall. A chief judge needs to be at some discrete place at the back of the room from where the entire contest venue is visible, so that if any distraction is happening, anything is going wrong, the chief judge can take some steps to correct it. In the online scenario, just be online and be observant. So there is no be at the back of the room kind of a point. So does that answer your question, or do you have something else in your mind?
No, that's one only.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. I will give you an example. Just you see, as I said, communication with even sergeant at arms is important. When I am a chief judge, and it happens invariably in every table topics and evaluation contest, that I really have to be at the back of the room and constantly keep an eye at the sergeant at arms who is at the door. because sometimes they leave the door open, sometimes they call the contestant early. So I have to check all those things, and I have to make sure and go to them and communicate that this is not done, to make sure that no contestant hears the topic or another person's evaluation. Right? That is the whole point.
Madam Madhavi, I have another request. That fifth question, the scenario you have, we are curious to know about it. Can you please? Thank you.
Which scenario?
The fifth scenario, the scenario number 5 we skipped. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Now that scenario, I had included only to point out that even a chief judge has some limitations. So that scenario was about an area contest. I was the chief judge. And when I received the ballots, I saw that 2 judges had absolutely biased judgment. It was so clear because the people they had given first place to were probably, according to me, according to any judge, they didn't stand anywhere. So it was completely biased. I won't disclose the reason now. A chief judge cannot change the ballots and the judgment at that time. That's a limitation of a chief judge. You have to accept whatever the judges have given. However, these kind of scenarios have given me the motivation to make 2 lists of judges that I work with. And fortunately, I have worked with so many judges, and I always study their ballots to see whether they have been fair or not fair generally, and their ballots give you an idea. So I make one list where I note down all the judges who I find very fair and trustworthy, and another list of judges who I'm not so
8
sure
minutes
about.
are over, remaining 2 minutes.
Thank you. So, and that helps me to select judges in future. So even though I couldn't correct the result in that contest, but I took precautions for future contests. So we still have about 1 minute, 50 seconds. So please ask me more questions. So,
should there be any dress code for the chief judge, ma'am, in general?
There is a recommended formal dress code, apparently. This is a very debatable topic for all the role players, not only the contest, even attendees. But of course, we don't have a uniform for a chief judge. Thank God for that. I look very bad in uniforms. But yes, of course, formal dress is absolutely necessary, I feel. So
9
whatever
minutes
dress
are
code,
over.
okay, 10 minutes are over?
No, 9 minutes. Still
Oh,
remaining
9
one
minutes.
more.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm so surprised that we don't have a lot of questions. So I think we have a lot of knowledgeable people in the audience.
I have a question, ma'am. My name is Patricia.
Hi, Patricia. Please ask.
Yeah, thank you very much. Kindly advise how a chief judge can sort out a protest. For example, if it's a table topics contest and the contestant says they've not heard the question or they misheard. For example, if the topic is unsung heroes and the contestant comes and works upon handsome heroes, at the end, the contestant launches a complaint or a protest that she misheard. What do you advise the chief judge to do? Thank you.
Okay. Toastmaster Patricia, our protests, fortunately or unfortunately, are limited to only 3 things. One is eligibility, one is originality, and one is referencing to another contestant's speech or portion of it. So this kind of a complaint cannot be accepted as a protest at all. However, since you mentioned, there is nothing to lose heart about when we do the judge's briefing. At that time, chief judge needs to really explain very well the judging criteria And the judging criteria of table topics includes being focused on the topic. Content is also a big part of the criteria. So if the content is not relevant, so I don't think the contestant should get any points for content because the content is invalid, right? So ideally, that contestant should not get any winning place at all. However, no protest can be made about it.
Excuse me, if you have a few seconds, this is Toastmaster Memona.
I have all
10
the time.
minutes are over.
Toastmaster Memona, sorry, this is the Master of Ceremonies.
Okay,
I'm
let's.
sorry. Okay,
Okay.
we'll just hear your question quickly, ma'am. If you can just wind it up in 30 seconds so we can move ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's just related to what Patricia just said now, because some table topping masters really have a very bad accent. And like she clearly said, the unsung to handsome, like seriously, I feel bad for the contestants when I'm there in the audience also. So this is a very critical point that it is on the master.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And as a chief judge, I always make it a point to communicate with the contest chair. I don't ask the topic, but I emphasize that you better pronounce everything correctly and clearly. So these are the various aspects of communication that a chief judge has to carry out proactively. That's why chief judge becomes like a really central point of a contest. But many of us don't realize the value of these small things. And I'm with you. Absolutely, I'm with you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you, Toastmaster Madhuri. Thank you, all the Toastmasters here who have asked your questions. Firstly, Toastmaster Madhuri, I must say that it was a truly enriching session. And what I liked most was the real live examples that you gave that help us connect to the real-time scenarios that happen during our Toastmasters contests. So thank you so much for that. A big round of applause, virtual round of applause for Toastmaster Madhuri Tiwari. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now to introduce our amazing trainer for the judges category. She was an assistant professor of English for more than 25 years and a middle school principal for more than 2 years. As an educational consultant, she has trained many school leaders, hundreds of school teachers, and college lecturers. She has published 2 dissertations and many articles on English as a second language. A lifelong learner with a PhD in educational leadership from the USA. In Toastmasters, I was very happy to know that she was the first lady to join Toastmasters in the Middle East. The first lady to achieve the DTM status, the first lady division governor. She has conducted more than 20 training workshops at Toastmasters. She has conducted several YLPs and speechcraft programs. Co-sponsor and founder, president of Tasca Toastmasters. Counselor of Gavel Club twice. Also known as the Iron Lady in Toastmasters and Geeta Ponnu Charming. She's passionate about yoga and a meditation teacher, trainer, an energy healer, master life coach, and spiritual counselor. Some of her interests are reading, Bharatnatyam, dancing, Veena playing, and is a traveler. She's traveled 54 countries. Please put your hands together for our dynamic trainer for the day, DTM, Dr. Geeta Ponnuchami. Over to you, Dr. Geeta.
Thank you so much for those. Thank you so much for those encouraging words of introduction, Master of Ceremonies, DTM Prince. Let me share the screen before I begin. Is someone else sharing the screen? because Zoom says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Is the timer or someone sharing?
DTM Geeta, you can go ahead now.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Hi, everyone, fellow Toastmasters, guests, district officials, good evening. I'm in reverse order. Anyways, okay, how many of you have attended a speech contest and left feeling, wow, what a tough competition and how accurate the judging was? Or have you left a speech contest feeling that the judgment was not fair, that you were cheated, and you didn't have a good experience? Well, it all depends on how well the judges were trained. So in this presentation, we'll be discussing why judges training is important, judges obligations, judges eligibility criteria, whether evaluating and judging are the same, how to judge, qualities of good judges, barriers to judging, the judge's guide and ballot, disqualifications and protests. Why is judges training important? Because speech contests are important in the Toastmasters program. Speech contests have three important and interesting purposes in Toastmasters. They provide an opportunity to practice competitive speaking for interested members, and they provide an interesting educational experience for members and the public, the audience who watch the contests. And they also provide an opportunity for members to learn by observing more proficient speakers. So judges have an obligation, first off, to contestants, because after all the inspiration and perspiration that contestants have poured into their speeches, if they don't get good judging, if they don't get good results, they're going to feel disappointed. And some of them may never even compete in contests again, let alone leave the club. So judges have an obligation to contestants, and then judges also owe it to Toastmasters International to give fair, unbiased, unprejudiced judgments at the end of any contest, because Toastmasters has a reputation for being, for its quality, for its excellence in speech training, in meetings, in speech contests, etc. So we don't want to put the Toastmasters International at stake. So we owe it to Toastmasters International to judge fairly. And judges also have an obligation to the audience, because at the end of a contest, if the audience members were not satisfied with the judgment, it's going to leave a bad taste in their mouths, and they might not be motivated to attend contests anymore. And last but not least, judges owe it to themselves to be fair during judging, because when we take on this assignment as judges, we commit ourselves to learning, to improving, to upskilling ourselves through this experience. And if we don't do a good job, if we do a shoddy job, an irresponsible job, without having any knowledge about judging, then we are cheating ourselves. We are shortchanging ourselves and the contestants. Judges' eligibility criteria: to be a chief judge, voting judge, or tie-breaking judge at a Toastmasters speech contest. At a club contest, it's sufficient to be a paid member. For a chief judge or a voting judge or a tie-breaking judge, it's sufficient for them to be just a paid member at a club level contest. However, beyond a club level contest, at an area, division, district, or going all the way up to Toastmasters International World Champion of Public Speaking Contest, judges must be a paid member for a minimum of 6 months, and they must have completed a minimum of 6 projects in the Competent Communication Manual. And this only applies to members who joined Toastmasters prior to the rollout of the Pathways program in their region, or they must have completed levels 1 and 2 of any path in the Toastmasters Pathways curriculum, the new curriculum. Well, we as Toastmasters are used to evaluating speeches. So now, what do you think is the difference between evaluating and judging? Can anyone from the audience unmute yourselves and answer? I'll just wait for 10 seconds. No one? All right, evaluating is assessing and advising. We analyze the speech for its positive and negative aspects, and then we give feedback, constructive feedback for the speaker to improve. Judging, on the other hand, is just picking a winner. If we are sitting there evaluating the speeches at the contest where we are serving as judges, we are wasting our time, and we get distracted from the judging guide, and we are not being fair to the contestants. So our job as judges is to select a winner and not to evaluate the performance of the speeches. Well, because our job is not to evaluate, judges' decisions are confidential. At the end of a contest, we are not supposed to evaluate the speeches that we just judged, evaluate the speeches with the co-judges or club members or anyone at all, let alone contestants. All our decisions are confidential. Now, how should we judge? What should we use when we judge? Our head or the heart? When we evaluate, we have to use both our head and the heart equally, because we can be objective only if we use our head. However, when we evaluate, we have to be sensitive to how our information is being received by the speaker. Therefore, we have to use our heart as well. We have to be kind when we evaluate. But when we are judging, we cannot help allowing our emotions to influence us. We are only human. So it is possible for us to be subjective. Nevertheless, we have to control our urge to be subjective, and we have to try and use our head more than our heart. Toastmasters International says, judging is a subjective process that we try to make objective. Judging is based on individual likes and dislikes. Hence, we have a panel to minimize the effect of any single judge's bias. To refer to Toastmaster Madhvi's scenario, one of the scenarios where 2 of the judges had marked unfairly, because we have a panel, that unfair judgment would have been compensated for by other members on the panel who would have been fairer, who would have been unprejudiced. So when you are a chief judge, what qualities will you be looking for in judges? Judges need to be accurate in their judgment. They should try to be as objective as they possibly can. In fact, studies conducted on courtroom judges have found that even courtroom judges are influenced by their feelings, by their emotions in their judgment. But they all try to be as objective as they could. So we have to be as accurate in our judgment as possible, and push our emotions aside. We have to be fair, objective, and try to control our subjectivity, and we should be trustworthy. The chief judge chose us because we are entrusted with the responsibility of making the right decision, of picking the right winner. So we must live up to that trust. And we must be knowledgeable about the judging form, the judging guide, the various categories on the judging guide, knowledgeable about the rules, protests, disqualifications, etc., etc. And be up to date with the contest rule book, which is being changed year after year. And as judges, we must be good listeners. We should tend not to get distracted. Then we are doing a disservice to the contestants. We should be rule abiding, because Toastmasters International says in the rule book that their rules cannot be supplanted, and nobody can ever make any exceptions to the rules. So judges have to be rule abiding. We are human beings, therefore we might have some obstacles, some barriers to objectivity. Speaker position. Sometimes some of us remember the first few items or the first few contestants, first few items on a list or the first few contestants. Some of us might remember the last few contestants, and we might be inclined to forget the contestants in the middle. But as judges, we must train our brains to give equal attention, equal importance to every contestant, regardless of their speaking position. We must not champion the underdog. We all must have noticed that some of the contestants are proficient speakers, professional contestants, and for them, participating in a contest is a cakewalk. Whereas for a new member, for someone who's been struggling to write speeches and to struggling with their mastery of contest skills, and if they have managed to advance to a certain contest level, we must not be influenced by this factor, and we must not grade them unfairly, thinking that, okay, let's do them a favor. It's not being fair to the other contestants. We all have heard about halo effect. This is when we admire one particular aspect of a contestant. For instance, we know that a contestant is popular for his or her dynamic delivery. And because we appreciate, we admire that particular aspect, delivery, we should not mark him or her high for the other aspects on the judging guide. We should not mark him unduly high for his content or language. So we should not allow a contestant's halo effect to influence our judging. And the reverse halo effect works this way. We personally might have some objections to a particular contestant's pronunciation, so because of which some of us might tend to mark this particular contestant down for all the other categories on the judging guide, which is not fair again. So we should be fair to the contestant, and we should mark the contestant for what he or she is worth for every criterion on the judging form. I remember a story here. Back in 2003 or 2004, we were in Bangalore visiting our elder son who was studying there. My younger son and I had breakfast at a restaurant, and we picked up a takeaway parcel for our elder son. And on the way to his hostel, we had to stop by a roadside stall to pick up a box of matches. So as I wanted to pay for the box of matches, I set this food parcel on the counter of the shop, and I was taking out my wallet from my purse. And suddenly, from out of nowhere, a little beggar boy appeared, and soon after I'd set it down, he snatched the food parcel and ran away with it. And immediately the shopkeeper started yelling at the boy, saying, all these rascals, they need to be reported to the police. They're always stealing things. They're all thieves. They are never happy with what we give them. I said, all right, it is wrong to steal. Nevertheless, he must have been hungry, so he must have needed the food. The next time you see someone or one of his friends, you want to warn him about reporting him to the police. So here, if one of the audience members could answer, who was making totally sweeping, overgeneralized judgments, and who was using both their head and the heart? Could anyone answer? 10 seconds, please. No? All right. The shopkeeper was making these overgeneralized judgments because that one urchin, one little child stole this one. There was this one incident where this one little child stole this food packet. It doesn't mean that he has to accuse all of them for being thieves, accuse all of them as thieves or as rascals who were never happy with whatever they got. So this is reverse halo effect. Because you don't like one aspect, it doesn't mean that you should mark a contestant down for all the other aspects of his speech. Second time around, very often we see contestants showing up in contest after contest, year after year. And sometimes we may have seen the same contestant featuring year after year, and as a judge, we should not compare. Maybe we were audience members before, and this time we are judging this particular contestant. So we should not allow ourselves to compare this contestant's performance this time with his or her previous performance. We have to give the contestant credit for how they perform at this particular contest at this point in time. That's it. No more, no less. And the next criterion to the next obstacle to us being objective is not the norm factor. For example, in our own club, we may be used to all our assignees, be it the speaker, the table topics commentator, or the individual evaluator standing up to speak. But during a contest, if we witness a contestant delivering his or her speech seated, we might think this is not the norm, so I'm going to mark this particular contestant down. That's not being fair. As long as his or her gestures were good, were effective, they were well synchronized with the message, as long as the gestures, body language were visible, there is no rule in the rule book that says that contestants must deliver.
Madam, 20 minutes are over.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Vishwanathan. All right, we should not allow our personal prejudices and personal preferences to influence our judging. Personal prejudices or likes and dislikes such as nationality, interests, speech topic, these things should not interfere with our judgment. Okay, we should know the rules. We should be familiar with the rule book. The rule book states on page 5 that exceptions are not permitted at all. These are some of the rules. Remember, we must attend judge's briefing. The tiebreaker does not attend the judge's briefing when you are the tiebreaker. The tiebreaker hands over his or her ballot to the chief judge and not the tally counters. And contestant eligibility, time disqualifications, these two are not judge's responsibility. We must be familiar with the judging form. The judging form has 2 sections to it. The top part is the judge's guide and the bottom is the official ballot, which we detach and hand over to the tally counters. The judge's guide is never handed over to the tally counters. It's for us to use as a guide to help judge, to help pick the winner. And the ballot is disqualified if it does not include top 3 positions. And it is disqualified if it is not signed by the judge. In our online scenarios, we need to print our name twice, once against our name, which is somewhere here, and once against signature. All right. We need to be familiar with the major categories on the judging form, which are content, delivery, language, and the weighting assigned to each of these major categories and the subcategories under each of these categories. We need to be familiar with what is expected under each of these categories and what weighting is allotted to each of these. As for judging techniques, we could use our own techniques. We could use these guidelines here, suggested point values when we are judging, like 20, for instance, 20 for speech development, 20 is excellent, and very good would be 14 to 19, good would be 9 to 13, and fair would be 0 to 8. So we could use these suggested point values, or we could use our very own point values. We could use a grading system of from A to E. We could use pluses and minuses, A plus, A plus plus plus, A minus minus minus, etc., etc. So it's entirely left to us. And we should remember one time, one of my friends was talking about, oh, I didn't realize that for humorous speech, the content, the weighting assigned to content was 55 and not 50. One of my friends was pointing this out. So we should remember that for humorous speech, the content is 5 points more. Content carries 5 points more than for international speech. And delivery, both humorous and international speeches, they carry the same weighting. And we should know what is expected under delivery, the physical aspects of delivery, the voice and the manner. And language, again, humorous speech only carries 15 points, whereas international speech carries 20 points for language. Disqualifications of speeches are based on 4 criteria. One is speaker eligibility. The contest chair is in charge of this. And originality of speeches. The chief judge and the judges are in charge of this. Only 25% or less of any speech should be quoted material, and the quoted material must be so identified during the speech. And 3, the contestants must not reference a co-contestant's speech. While they're allowed to reference any other person's speech, they're not allowed to refer to the speech presented on the same platform. And of course, over time or under time. Disqualification on the basis of originality. Before a contestant can be disqualified on the basis of originality, he or she is allowed an opportunity to explain his position. And if the majority of the judges concur to disqualify.
25 minutes are over, 5 minutes left.
Thank you, Toastmaster Vishwanath. So if the majority of judges should concur to disqualify that particular speech, then the contestant must be informed of the disqualification. Protests are limited to 3 things: eligibility, originality, and for referencing another co-contestant's speech. And a protest must only be lodged by two people, voting judges and or contestants, not audience members. The chief judge, contest chair, voting judges and contestants must not consider protests from audience members, and any protest must be lodged with one of the two people, the chief judge and or the contest chair, prior to the announcement of the results, not after the announcement of the results. So I suppose we have discussed all of these objectives. And in conclusion, the strongest principle of growth lies in human choice. We have to mindfully make the choice to be fair, to be unbiased, to be more objective than subjective when we judge, so that everyone goes home with a beautiful experience, contestants, contest officials, and the audience members. And that way, we make Toastmasters International proud. Okay, I have some, these are the references. I have some common concerns. And after I go over these, the moderator could ask the audience for more situations. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. All right, question. Must international speeches be always serious with I should remove, with an inspiring or motivating message? Should it always be serious? One of the audience members could answer. Because this seems to be an unwritten rule. It should always be serious. Very good. Why not? Why not? Because the rule book says...
It makes it light. It makes it light.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. If I may add to your answer, the rule book only states 75% of the speech must be original. So it could be a humorous speech with a message. All right, going on to question 2. A new club, less than a month old, with 22 members, has had its club contests and they want to participate in the area contests. Are they eligible to participate in the area contest? You're the chief judge. You tell me. Are they eligible?
Yes. Yes. They are eligible.
Mm-hmm. So what makes them eligible, and what will you do as the chief judge to ensure eligibility? Yeah?
I think even without contest, club contest, they can participate in the area contest, right?
No, there must be a club contest. Okay, rule book says before the area contest, the club must be officially chartered. And Toastmasters International, you know the rule for getting license from Toastmasters International, getting the charter from Toastmasters International, we must have a minimum of 20 members. Of course, the number might drop later, but at the time of applying for the charter, we must have a minimum of 20 members. Then we are eligible to be chartered by TI, number 1. And TI only takes 7 business days to process the charter papers. And therefore, and this club is a month old, so we just have to make sure that they are officially chartered by TI, and then they are eligible to compete. Okay, question. Several contestants protested the topic had leaked during the contest. Toastmaster Madhavi had the same, she had the same contest in mind, and so do I. So what would you do if you were the chief judge? The topic had leaked during the contest. It's not the contest chair's fault. It was probably one, the waiting room was too close to the hall, or probably assume a scenario, or probably one of the contest, the sergeant at arms outside the door, out of curiosity, asked the sergeant at arms inside the door, and he didn't realize that a contestant was standing behind him. So, somehow or the other, imagine the scenario where the topic had leaked. So what would you do?
We can change the topic instantly by the chief judge. I would recommend.
Okay, halfway through the contest? Would you do
Yes,
that, Kaf?
in my capacity, yes.
In my capacity, yes.
Okay. What if the protest came after, the topic was passed on to the other contestants who were in the waiting room? And what if the protest came at the end of the contest?
Results remain unchanged. I would not take into consideration.
Many contestants protested. What would we do? Not just one, many.
Restart the contest.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, because protests are limited to eligibility, originality, and referencing a co-contestant's speech. And this rule obviously applies to international speech or humorous speech. This does not apply to the table topics contest. Therefore, we could meet with the contest chair on all the contestants, and if by a majority vote, of course, by secret ballot, if by a majority vote, the contestants are in favor of cancelling this particular contest in question and reorganizing another contest, either at the same, it's table topics, so it's going to be a very short contest. So reorganizing it at the same time or during another occasion, we could do that. The chief judge could go for a totally cancel the current one and go for a totally new contest with a totally new topic.
Ma'am, I have a question. If chief judge decides to hold it and without cancelling it, how is that condition then? Because chief judge is the chief judge.
Chief judge is the chief judge. And if they decide to go on without listening to the protest, the contestants are going to be quite unhappy. So will the audience. And the rule about eligibility and originality is not going to be applied to this table topics contest. So in the interest of, if there are many protests, the chief judge will have to listen to them, give them at least, it's only fair to give them a chance to explain why they feel that way. So if the contestants are unsatisfied, why not give them another contest? Because this is only table topics. This is not Toastmaster. What is that? International speech. So it would be better if the chief judge were to sit with the contestants and ask for their opinion.
Even a district contest?
At a district contest, well, it depends on, at a district contest, of course, we have to prevent such a scenario because it's a chief judge's responsibility to make sure that the waiting room is far away from the contest hall. So usually we prevent such scenarios. And this has happened in our 64, Toastmasters started in 1964. So you can do the math. So in all these years, this has happened just once. So let's hope that this will not happen. And if it does happen, it would be in the interest of being fair to the contestants, because many contestants protested. If I were the chief judge, I would ask for the consensus of the contestants in cancelling this contest and reorganizing another. I would do this even at the district level.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. All right. A Toastmaster from the audience complains to the contest chair about an offensive gesture made by one of the contestants. What would you do if you were the contest chair? Well, I've seen this twice. Once at GTAC, in Oman, Gulf Toastmasters Annual Conference, and once at an area contest in Bahrain. I've seen this happen. So the answer would be protests are limited to eligibility, originality, and referencing another contestant's speech. And only contestants and voting judges are allowed to raise protests, not audience members. So if I were the contest chair, then I would tell the audience member that judges would have been, during the judges briefing, judges would have been asked to mark the contestant down, because this is offensive gesture. Mark the contestant down for delivery. And if it was unparliamentary language, protests or complaints about unparliamentary language used by a contestant, from the audience, then again, the chief judge usually
QA,
informs
8 minutes are over, 2 minutes left.
Oh, okay. So the chief judge informs during judges briefing, the chief judge asks the judges to mark the contestant down in that respective category. So for language, it would be language category. So one of the judges left the blank for the third place winner. What would you do when you are the chief judge? Audience? Audience members? He did not give 3 place getters, he or she.
Decline that ballot.
Exactly, disqualify his or her ballot. Okay. After a contest where you were a judge, if a contestant or audience member were to ask you for an evaluation of his or her speech or a particular contestant's performance, how would you respond? Judges' decisions are confidential. So you could say, I'm sorry, judges' decisions are confidential. I don't remember the results.
9 minutes are over.
Okay. Contestant A files a protest saying that parts of contestant B's speech were taken from a past world champion's speech. So, is that a criterion for disqualification? No, because yeah, you cannot reference a co-contestant, but you can refer to another person, as long as that referenced part is acknowledged. Okay. Right. We'll come back to this. Okay. 2 minutes into you're a judge. Halfway through a contestant's speech, you realize his audio is not clear. Neither the contest chair nor the chief judge intervenes because this is not technical failure on the part of the organizing committee. You couldn't hear the rest of the speech clearly. So what would you do? Thank you, Toastmaster Vishwanath. Okay, what would you do? You were a judge and you couldn't hear the contestant. Don't mark that contestant, but inform the chief judge. All right, over to you, Master of Ceremonies, DTM Prince. I do have a couple more scenarios later on, perhaps.
Thank you, DTM Geeta. It was very enriching, the session that we had. Thank you so much. Before we wind up, there was one question that one of our Toastmasters was waiting to ask. So we'll just give about 30 seconds to Toastmaster Dinesh Kumar Pal, please. Toastmaster Dinesh, if you can quickly just ask your questions before we move to the next session.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony, and thank you, DTM Geeta Punchami. You mentioned in the judges' criteria that not norm means Toastmasters International doesn't mention the speaker had to give a speech on the sitting chair or the standing position. So, in my personal opinion, if I am the judge, a person is giving from the chair and he could not be able to use the gesture and compared to the who is giving the standing position. So, of course, the judge will give the lower mark. It is my opinion. How you clarify?
Yeah, you're right. This is exactly what I said too. As long as his gestures were effective and synchronized with his message and still visible on screen for all the judges, we will not mark him down for delivery. If they were not effective, if gestures were not visible because he or she was seated, then definitely he would be marked down for delivery. Yeah, is that okay?
Thank you.
Because it's not a rule. It's not a rule. You know, there is no rule that stipulates that contestants must not deliver seated.
Thank you, DTM.
You're welcome.
Thank you, DTM Geeta. Thank you so much. We really learned a lot from your session today. Thank you so much. And what I really enjoyed the most was the Q&A that you had ready for us. So it was almost like an FAQ, you know, frequently asked questions that you were ready with the answers. So we learned a lot from your session. Thank you so much. A big round of applause, a virtual round of applause for DTM Geeta. Thank you. For all those who couldn't ask your questions because of time shortage, please, you may ask questions on email or WhatsApp, and we will get you the answers after the session. And this applies for all the trainers. Now for the next segment, to introduce our amazing trainer for the contestants category. She achieved her DTM on July 1st, 2020 and is the past area director of Area 17. She has been a president, vice president education, VP PR, treasurer, and has taken up various ExCom positions. She has 3 beautiful girls and is very proud of them. She is a die-hard, internationally rated Scrabbler and travels to places to play it. She loves reading, traveling, painting, cooking, photography, and blogging. She is currently working with Corona testing, again handling 1,400 samples a day on an average. Hats off to you. And her motto is, I live each day as if it's my last. Please put your hands together for DTM, Rohena Akil. Over to you, DTM Rohena.
Hi, good evening. Can you all hear me? I'm having some internet connection issues, and please let me know if perchance I have the glitch that contestants normally face. So now you know what I'm going to be doing, talking about contestants, woes, and what they face, the nervousness and the added glitch problem. Don't compete with others, compete with yourself. That is healthy competition. Good evening, district officials and Toastmasters from all over the world. As you know, I'm going to be talking to you about something which is very important during a contest. Of course, you need a chief judge, you need the judges, you need the timer and the tally counter. But what good fun is a contest without the contestant? You definitely need the contestant. And thanks to virtual technology, by virtual means, and Zoom, of course, big salute to it, Toastmasters, you are allowed to contest and compete with pride. I will brief you about us, but first let me just share my screen here. Okay, and okay, so we have got a long slide here. Just a second, please. Yes. We are going to be talking about the contestant. Now, the contestant himself has prepared, and for months he's like, on edge, and then he comes in front of an audience who is virtual. So Zoom has definitely given us this opportunity, but then there are certain do's and don'ts that the contestant himself has to do. Otherwise, you see, he's like that. He's stuck up over there with knives around him and he doesn't know what to do. So he needs to know all the rules of eligibility, rules of qualification and disqualification. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you about. You must have heard from everyone that you have to be on time, especially when you are virtual. Even during a real meeting, you have to be earlier unless you get stuck in a traffic jam or you are late for some other emergency. But you see, you have to be here when you are in the confines of your home at least 45 minutes before the actual time of the contest, and check for your connectivity, check for your audibility, check your position again, check how you're standing, your stage area, the lighting, all that will play a very important role in your contest. Now, why I'm saying this is because when you are actually doing this, you should actually be doing it 2 days in advance too. You should be rehearsing it, and dress rehearsals are very important at the same time that you have your contest, so that the lighting will not affect your visibility. You should be in front of the light. That light should be falling on you. It should be coming from behind your device, your laptop, and preferably laptop. Not that the light should be behind you and you are in the dark. So do a dress rehearsal at least 2 to 3 times before this, and ensure you do it at the same time so that you get the best environment of a contest. Your face, hands, and at least your upper half should be in good view. Basically, the focus should be at eye level. And a very good focus is at least within 3 feet. If you go beyond that, either the audibility would be affected or a bit of visibility. There could be some blurriness, which is not good for you to be a contestant. Remain within the frame. Now don't keep moving too much on your left and too much on your right. Have your area chalked out, marked out, so that you stay within that same area. If you are using any tethered microphone, do try to use a long cord so that if you have to move, the microphone doesn't come off. Do not keep 2 devices. That would cause a lot of static and a lot of interference and echo and noise. So your speech would not be heard. And that again would go against you. Now, my co-presenters have actually given a few more tips, which I also was going to talk to you about. Like your audibility has to be there. Otherwise, if you will not be marked. That's what the judges look at. And I will be repeating whatever they have said, 1 or 2 areas which are important for the contestant to keep in mind. When you come on stage and your name is announced, the first thing you do is you pin the timer. Do not forget to pin the timer. Do not forget to rehearse with the time. But you know, when you are in front of the computer, sometimes you don't even know if your connectivity is gone, if you are 3 feet away. So try to pin the timer and keep seeing the time. Make sure your microphone and camera are working. Otherwise, keep a secondary device. Ask your husband or your wife to keep one device at hand, ready, just in case you have a glitch. Now, we all know that we contestants have to have some eligibility. And I think this has been spoken about. One important factor definitely is that you have to be in good standing. A paid member with one or all the clubs that you are a member with and wish to represent. The club also should be in good standing. And a new or a dual or a reinstated member must have dues and membership application currently with the World Headquarters. In addition to be eligible to compete, in addition to be eligible to compete in the International Speech Contest, the contestant should have completed 6 speech projects that was in the competent communication manual, but right now using the pathways, they should have completed level 1 and 2. 1 and 2, that means they should complete 2 levels. However, a charter member of a club chartered less than 1 year before the club contest is permitted to compete without having completed this particular requirement. The club must have officially chartered before the area contest. That's just if it is happening before, within a 1 year span. Only members who join Toastmasters prior to the rollout of pathways in their region can apply speeches from the competent communication manual to speech contest eligibility. Now, why I'm reading out this is because there are certain points which all of you need to do. Read the speech contest rule, because there are many points which have been highlighted, and these points are all newly introduced, and for your benefit, especially since you are going to go virtual. Toastmasters in more than one club are permitted to compete in club contests in each club, but different categories. No contestant can compete in more than one area of a given type or category, even if the areas are in different divisions or districts. Contestants should not reference. Now, this is the new highlighted point which has been highlighted over there, especially because they are looking for new speeches. They do not want plagiarism, or they do not want reference while you're on the same platform. Somebody has given a speech and gone. You cannot take material from their speeches and make your speech there. Maintain eligibility at all levels of any contest. If at any level it is determined that a contestant was ineligible to compete at any previous level, the contestant must be disqualified. And this disqualification must occur even if the ineligibility is discovered at a later level and has been corrected. Now, coming back to my slide over here, when you come on stage, participants need to change their name that has been displayed. That's the point number 3 there. You need to put, this is actually not for the participants, it's more for the role players, the role that they are playing plus the name. And they should not have any tags like AD, area director, DTM. That should not be specified. No whatever position you are holding in Toastmasters should not be specified. So I've given an example over here, like if you're doing an international speech, it will be INT plus Rohena Akhil, or INT hyphen Rohena Akhil, or humorous speech, it can be humorous plus Alifia Lakrawala. Then I did speak about focusing your laptop at the high level, pinning the timer, the lighting, and the frame. That's when you are all ready for a contest. Now, coming to the eligibility again, there is another point I need to highlight out here. Those who are not ineligible. Of course, when you are eligible to compete, but then there are those who are not eligible to compete. A member serving as a voting judge or tie-breaking judge beyond the club level for a contest type in which the member is still competing or intends to compete cannot be competing. Incumbent, international officers and directors, region advisors or region advisor applicants, district officers whose term expires on June 30th. Director, the club road director, administration division director, and the area director. All these term will expire on June 30th, who are the district officers and who are ineligible to compete. Contest chairs,
DTM
chief
Rohena,
judges.
sorry to step in, DTM Rohena, but there is some issue with the delay in slides. So I would recommend if you can switch off your video so that you're using lesser bandwidth and the slides are more visible to
Okay, if you want me to, I'll do that. Okay, sure.
Thanks.
Is that okay? So others who are ineligible to compete
video
are.
Still on, DTM.
Is it on still? Okay, I don't know where.
Yes, it's fine now. Thank you.
Fine. Okay. Contest chairs, chief judges, voting judges, tie-breaking judges, timers, counters, sergeant at arms, and test speakers may not compete in the contest at which they are serving in any of these roles. Each contestant must be physically present to compete beyond the club level. Participation by audio or video or any other remote technology is not permitted beyond the club level. Should a club, area, or division contest winner be unable to participate in the next level contest, then the highest placed available contestant will advance to that level. These are the eligible and ineligible contestants that I need to tell you about. Now, talking about speech preparation, speech subject and preparation. The subject is always chosen by the contestant, whether it's international or humorous. Of course, for the table topics, it's given by the contest chair, as outlined in the table topics contest section of the rule book. The subject of evaluation contest speeches is limited to oral evaluations of the test speaker's speech. Contestants must create their own speeches, and each must be substantially original. As you know, only 25% or less of the speech may be devoted to quoting, paraphrasing, or referencing another person's content. Any quoted, paraphrased, or referenced content must be so identified during the speech presentation. Before all contests, every contestant must certify in writing to the chief judge that the content of their speech is or will be substantially original by using the speaker's certification of eligibility and originality. And that's the form we need to sign and give to the chief judge. Actually, you give it to the contest chair. Contestant must not do any reference. Now, this has been repetitively been there, and it's a new point, new particular point which has been highlighted, because you do not have to reference another contestant or a speech presented by another contestant on the same platform that they are competing on. All contestants will speak from the same platform or area designated by the contest chair. All contestants, the chief judge, the voting judges, and the tie-breaking judge will be advised of the speaking area before the contest begins. And that is what they will relate to the contestant. Now, in contests with 3 or more participants, a third place winner, second place winner, and a first place winner would be announced. But what would happen if you have just 3 or fewer than 3 participants? Fewer than 3, you would definitely have just a second place winner and the first place winner. And there have also been certain contests where there was just one contestant. And when you have just one contestant, in that case, a contest must be held. The contestant will be disqualified if he does not meet the timing, the originality, and eligibility requirements. For the protests and disqualification. Now, as you know, in every contest, there are protests and disqualifications. Now, who is actually allowed to make protests? Maybe one of you all can unmute and let me know. Ten, 9, 8, 7. 6.
Contestants and judges can protest.
It's not the contestants and the judges. It's contestant and, yes, and the judges. You're right. Sorry, the DTM Ramkumar, you are right. And you can take this protest to the chief judge. Now, it happened with one of the contests that I was present at, that one of the audience, I think he was a timer there, and he protested. And the judge heard that, and then the judges then started talking about it, and they went to the chief judge. But by that time, it became a big story, and eventually it became that only the contestants or the judges have to be the ones who protest, not the timer passing on the messages. So even that should not be taken into account, actually. And we had to disqualify the contestant on that basis. So that is a very crucial and a very difficult decision which the chief judge has to make at such points. So talking about the protests, as you know, protests are eligible only by the contestant and by the voting judges, and they have to be lodged with the chief judge prior to the announcement of the winners, okay? Not just when he's announcing or after he announces. The chief judge, the contest chair, the voting judges and contestants must not consider protests from the audience members. And I think this also was reiterated by DTM Geeta. She did mention this. Before a contestant can be disqualified on the basis of originality or for referring another contestant's speech, the contestant must be given an opportunity to respond to the voting judges. A majority of the voting judges must concur in the decision to disqualify. So the voting judges are also allowed to give in, they can give it their votes whether they want to disqualify or keep the contestant. The contest chair can disqualify a contestant on the basis of eligibility. All decisions of the voting judges and qualifying judges are final. So in the end, I would just like to say is this, that the struggles we endure today will be the
Madam,
good old
20
days
minutes are over.
we laugh about tomorrow.
20.
Okay, thank you so much. So I would like to wish whoever is competing a very healthy competition, because competition makes you better, always. Always makes you better, even if the competitor wins. So the competitor should always not win, and you can win. Let us all win. All the best to all the contestants. Now it's time for any questions. I can take them. I could also switch on my camera now. Should I stop sharing this? Yeah. Okay. Anybody has any questions?
Yeah,
regarding...
good evening.
Good evening.
Master of Ceremony, can I ask the question?
Please go ahead, Toastmaster Ganesh. Please go ahead. The floor is open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, DTM Rohana, for wonderful
Good
your
evening.
presentation. My question is that it is not even the ballot question. I myself also thinking, at the contest, Toastmasters International says when we were in the physical contest, that timer should be displayed only to the contestant, not to the audience. But
True.
since we are the virtual, it is openly displayed. Is there Toastmasters International anything mentioned especially for this issue in the new rule book? You got my question?
Actually, the timer rule is, yes, I got your question. This timing rule, I think because DTM Ahmad Rizvi will be talking about the timers. Maybe he could answer you better. I mean, I would like to open the floor for him to answer that question for you. It's not, I have not come across this particular rule as you have asked. DTM Ahmad Rizvi, would you like to unmute yourself and answer that?
DTM Rohana.
Yes, can I have the question, please?
Please, if I may just intervene, I'm sorry, this is the Master of Ceremonies. DTM Rohana and
Sure,
DTM Rizvi. Yeah, DTM Ahmad Rizvi, just a small point. We have a panel discussion happening later, so we can take this question up at a later stage.
Okay.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kindly keep note of it. Thank you.
Yes, Toastmaster Dinesh, please make a note of that. If there's, I would take one more question, Toastmaster Rohana, so we can go ahead and
Yes,
be
with
on
the
track
panel.
with the timing. So we'll take one
Perfect.
more question if someone has it, or we can go, or this question can be asked during the panel moderation.
Excellent. That's fine.
Okay, I think we don't have. Okay, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, it's very funny actually. Many of them do not volunteer to take tiebreaker judging. How can we motivate and bring forward as a tiebreaker? Because they consider themselves that it, anyways, if it goes a tie, then my ballot will be useful. How we can motivate them? Any tips in general? Thank you. 。
I I think what you can do is, I mean, that is actually a chief judge. He's the one who decides who he wants as a tiebreaker judge. And when you decide, you will decide wisely. You will decide somebody who would not be biased, and who would be just in his decision. So I think
Thank you.
they would be motivated, by the chief judge himself.
Thank you, DTM Rohena. Thank you, Toastmasters. I think we just move ahead with the next segment. Before that, DTM Rohena, thank you so much for sharing such precious information. We all learned a lot from what you spoke with us today. Thank you so much, and we will see you again during the panel discussion that we're going to have in the next segment after this segment. Thank you, DTM Rohena. A round of applause for DTM Rohena. Thank you so much. A virtual round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now to introduce our next amazing trainer for the eligibility category. He's a passionate trainer, enthusiastic and ready to learn leader. He had been the area, division and district leader and is a member of many clubs. Currently the Area 3 Director and President of ABCTC, which is the Allied Bahrain Communicators Toastmasters Club. Please put your hands together for DTM Ahmed Rizvi. Over to you, DTM Ahmed Rizvi. Sir, you're on mute. Could you please unmute yourself?
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Master of Ceremonies, Master Prince, district officials, respected, invited dignitaries, and fellow Toastmasters and participants. Good evening to you all. It's a wonderful platform to be present in this forum. And I am now contemplating as to what I have got to speak about. I prepared about eligibility, I prepared about judges, and I prepared about team judging a little bit. Now, almost more than what I should speak, what I should present has been covered by all my predecessors. Now, I am thinking whether my presentation or whether my giving any clues will be a repetition or duplication for other presenters who had been presenting. So I would really request whether we could go for an interaction, question and answer session, or move on to the panel discussion itself, so that we will be able to answer any doubts that the participants have. Eligibility, I think Rohena has covered more than what I had also. She has completely covered the rule book eligibility criteria itself. And the chief judge trainer, Madhavi Tiwari, also has covered most of the doubts what I had to clear. As well as the presenter, Geeta Rani Pundujami, covered most of the question and answer session with her frequently asked question session in the slides. So with due respect, I would like to ask the Master of Ceremonies whether we can move on to the panel discussion itself so that any doubts can be cleared rather than taking to duplicate the presentations what has been done. What
Well
do you
noted,
think,
DTM Ahmed. Well noted. I mean, we are with you on your point. We agree with you. If you wish, we can go ahead with the panel discussion so everyone benefits from the session.
Yeah, because it may look for the audience that a repetition is being made about the eligibility and other things. But
all
the
right.
questions or the role players, I will be able to explain a little bit with the panel moderation itself.
Sure, DTM Ahmed. We are with you. We agree with you. So if it's okay for all the presenters, trainers, if you're okay, we can move into the panel discussion with all our Toastmasters. We can keep it open for the Q&A session. If I could just get a go ahead from the trainers,
Sure.
DTM Madhvi, DTM Geeta, DTM Rohena. Yes,
yes.
Sure.
Can we move
could
ahead?
do that. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, great. So fellow Toastmasters, this is the time. We have the trainers at your disposal, ready for your questions, and you have so much information out here, and it depends on you how much information you can get out of our trainers tonight. So we have this short session coming up. Please feel free, unmute yourselves, go ahead with your questions. If you wish, you can put in questions on the chat box and I can read them out for you, or I can give you a chance to speak if it's on the chat box. Over to the audience and over to the trainers to answer the questions. Thank you. May we have the first question, please?
Toastmaster Dinesh's question, yes.
Go ahead, Toastmaster Dinesh.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. My question was there, is there any new contest rule book considering the virtual contest? Is the Toastmasters International mentioned anything specifically about the display of the timer?
Honestly speaking, Toastmaster Dinesh, in the rule book, there is nothing covered in about the online contest. But there is a separate the booklet-like instructions, best practices on online contests has been published. Whereas the preparation of the speaker should be well established by the contest master or the sergeant at arms or the moderator. And when the timing starts, how the pinning of the timing should be there. Everything is in detail, the best practices of the online contests. What they have established as a standard operating procedure for online contests. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you, DTM Ahmed. Is there any other presenter who would also like to answer that? Any other trainer who would also like to answer this question?
The best practices document or file does talk about how the contestants could pin the timer in order for them not to miss the timer. However, I think if I'm not mistaken, Toastmaster Dinesh was asking about, does this not influence the audience? Because in a physical scenario, we try to obstruct the timing device from the view of the audience because we do not want the audience to be making gestures to their specific contestant about the near ending of time or whatever. So this would happen in a physical scenario. Audience members might be tempted, club members might be tempted to help their speaker, warn them about time if the timing device was visible to them. Whereas in an online scenario, they are not in a position, the audience, the club members are not in a position to warn the contestant of the time, because the contestant is not going to be receiving calls when he is bent upon presenting his speech. So there is no such thing about hiding the timing device from the view of the contestants in an online situation. Toastmaster Dinesh, was that your particular question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, DTM Geeta Punchami. You more elaborated. So I will add one more question. Right now you can see the timer image, timer 1 Vishnathan. It is only the image. So why we not put the actual timer so speaker can see what time he consuming and what time is remaining?
That might be a bit confusing to do the math. So we are used to, in Toastmasters, we are used to the colors. So green, yellow, red. So because it's a contest situation where contestants are going to be really nervous, we don't want to confuse them with any new technology. So the best is the timing cards or the colors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Dinesh, and thank you, DTM Geeta and DTM Ahmed for answering the questions exceptionally well. I would now open the floor to another question. If someone has it, you can also name the trainer specifically if you wish to ask it specific to any certain trainer as well. Yeah, anyone wants to go ahead with the question, please?
Yes, I have a question. In general, how many tally counters do require for the division level contest? In general, anybody can answer. Thank you.
2 are sufficient.
But the rule book specifies 3.
Sorry, Rizviji, I stand corrected. But we usually have 2, right, at club level.
Club
So
level
the rule,
is 2, yes.
yeah, so the rule book specifies 3. Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you.
Division level, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, DTM Ram, for an interesting question. Maybe have another question from the audience. Audience, please make the most of the session. We have a lot of information here waiting to be tapped from all of you. Anybody else? Please go ahead. For those who wish to type your questions on the chat box, I would be monitoring that as well. So please feel free to do that. Any more questions? Come on, Toastmasters. We've got excellent trainers in the house. They're waiting for your questions.
I think everyone's just ready for their contest right now.
Yeah, everyone's all set for the contest, it looks like, yes. Okay, meanwhile, DTM Geeta, I remember you mentioned you had one situation or one Q&A still left in your presentation.
Yeah.
So maybe we
Probably
can utilize this
2
time for
or
that.
3 more, 2 or 3 more. Is that okay? Would
Yes,
you
that's
like me to?
absolutely fine,
Sure.
DTM Geeta. And just before we get on to that, I have a question that's coming from DTM Sunil Kumar Verghese. Can you please explain more about the reference to the contestants? About reference to the contestants. Is that the question, DTM Sunil? DTM Sunil, if you could just unmute yourself. You mentioned, can you please explain more about a reference to the contestants? Can you please be a little more specific on the question, DTM Sunil? Co-contestants.
Yeah, basically he's mentioning about the paraphrasing or this from another contestant's speech, if that is what he implies.
Okay, fine. Any trainer would like to answer this question?
Could I?
Yes, DTM Geeta, please go ahead.
So one of the disqualification criteria is this: referencing another contestant's speech, a contestant on the same platform. So this has been newly added. Usually disqualifications are only for eligibility and originality of speech content. But recently TI has added that contestants must not reference a co-contestant's speech, a contestant who is performing on the same platform as themselves. They don't give any explanation in the rule book. Nevertheless, I presume that might be because of 1 or 2 ways. One, they might praise the co-contestant, and that might influence the judge's decision, or they might put the co-contestant down, and that again is not being fair to that particular contestant who is being referenced by this particular contestant. So probably for one of these 2 reasons, Toastmasters rule book does not permit contestants to reference a co-contestant's speech on the same stage.
Thank you.
Understanding.
Clear. Thank you, DTM Geeta.
I have a
yes,
question.
DTM Ram, please go ahead with your question, and you can be specific on which trainer you would like to answer your question, or if you keep it open, one of our trainers can step in.
Okay, I would like to ask this question for, in general, actually, Ahmed sir. My question is, we all get excited to know the result, and if you and I or anybody as a chief judge role, we have taken it, and how fast and how much time actually, is there any mention in the rule book about chief judge timing to announce the result? Because sometimes it takes more time. We cannot come out with the result because of something or the other comes up at the end. Is there any specific time limit to come and before we announce the result, or there is any rule book where it is mentioned that chief judge has to follow these many minutes and to announce the results? Especially, I'm talking about the district or division level contests. Or is there is no time limit for the chief judge announcement of the results? First place, second place, third place winner.
DTM Madhavi did say we can take as much time as we need. And in fact, if there are protests which require the contestant protest or regarding disqualification in terms of originality, which requires the contestant having to be called and asked for an explanation, and after that, the judges having to convene and to concur on their decision to disqualify that particular speech. So if that's going to take some time, when I was division governor, I had come up with this code. If there are protests which require delaying tallying of results, then we would inform the judges indirectly by having the contest chair announce the results are still being tallied. And when the contest chair says twice, the judges have to move to the briefing room or the tally counters room, because this is a code phrase for there being protests which require the judges' attention. So it could take as long as the protest takes to resolve, depending on the nature of the protest. So there is no time limit specified in the rule book.
One more
Thank
thing,
you.
DTM Geetaji, I must be again correct myself. The latest rule book is, yes, the 2021 rule book states it is 2 contests, even for division contests. So
two for division contests?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, because so because this is what I saw even when I was, recently, whatever. Nevertheless, there are so many rules, we cannot remember all of them. So it's all right if we get some of them wrong, but before we organize the contest, we have to be thorough with all the rules. So for now, it's okay.
District contest onwards, it is 3.
3, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, DTM Ahmed and DTM Geeta. Thank you, DTM Ram, for your question. Is there any other question from the audience? All right, so DTM Geeta, now that we don't have questions from the audience, I would ask you to pick any 2 out of your pending 5 questions so we can finish just a little before time and we can move ahead with closure of
all
segments.
right. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay.
13 minutes are over, 2 minutes left for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Toastmaster Vishwanath. You're being such a great timer. Okay, so where am I? I'm here. Let me move my image to somewhere else. All right. Okay, I think we did this.
We were at 8 and 9.
We were at 8, yes. As a voting judge, you know a contestant's speech is not substantially original. What would you do as a judge and chief judge? Audience? You know that a contestant's speech is not substantially original. I was witness to this at one of the GTACs in Oman. What would you do? It's not original. What would you do as a judge? Nothing? Okay, let me be quick. So I would protest to the chief judge. And then the chief judge will have to go through the entire procedure of asking the other judges for their consensus. And then if the others agree that it is not substantially original, then we'd have to call the contestant in question into the room, briefing room or whatever room, and then give him or her an opportunity to explain. Okay, if we don't, and of course, if the judges decide, the majority decide to disqualify that speech, the contest chair's responsibility is to inform the contestant of the disqualification of their speech. It's very important to do this. Let me share a story here. One time during the GTAC at Oman, one of the contestants gave a beautiful, beautiful speech. She was a brand new member in Toastmasters, and the speech was, forget about substantially not original. It was 100% plagiarized from a personal motivation series. And I myself was familiar with that. I was not judging. I was just a part of the audience. And I knew it. But as an audience, I knew I could not protest. However, the judges did not realize that this was 100% plagiarized material. So, but they must have probably realized it, and they may have disqualified her. We don't know what actually transpired, may have disqualified her, but obviously they did not inform her of the disqualification of her speech based on originality, obviously. How was it obvious? When the results were being announced by the contest chair, third place was over, second place was over, and when it came to the winner, the moment the contest chair, this girl was called Susan M. And there was another Susan Belbasi from Jordan who was a contestant too. So the moment the contest chair announced the first place getter, and she said, Susan, this Susan M ran excitedly to the stage and she almost grabbed the trophy. And when she did that, the contest chair stopped her and said, sorry, excuse me, it's not Susan you, it is Susan Belbasi. So you can imagine the embarrassment of the contestant. And she broke into tears and she was crying uncontrollably. Of course, Susan Belbasi came, claimed the trophy and walked away. But this Susan could not be consoled at all. And so much so, she said she deserved it. But the judges could not speak. But Darren LeCroy, and me being an audience member, I went to console her, but whatever I said, she would not be consoled. Darren LeCroy, I think he was 2002 World Champion of Public Speaking. He was the guest of honor at that occasion, at that event. And he went over to her and he said, she was a very beautiful girl. So he said, it was just a joke. He said, I would marry you if you stopped crying, I would marry you. So then she stopped crying. And then he said to the audience that had gathered around him and her, he said, Susan, it was highly motivational, beautiful delivery, very dynamic, but there was no you in your speech. So it was not original at all. So contestants, please remember, there has to be you in your speech to make it original, meaning we have to talk about our own personal experiences and the lessons we learned from our experiences that are worth sharing with co-contestants. So this, when he said this, she accepted. So
thank you.
Judges have to judges have to concur, blah, 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 disqualify. And after the disqualification is made, the decision to disqualify is made, the contest chair must inform the contestant of the disqualification. Otherwise, a scenario like this might repeat itself. So is that all we have time for?
Thank you, DTM. Yeah, yes, that's all we have time for, DTM Geeta, because we have a very strict timer with us today. So
I understand.
we cannot we cannot surpass the timer this time. So thank you, Toastmaster Vishwanathan, as well for being a great timer with us today. Well, thank you, trainers. It was an excellent session. We really enjoyed it and we learned so much today. Thank you for your time. I would now like to sign off as the Master of Ceremonies and call on stage our dynamic powerhouse, the Program Quality Director of District 20, DTM Alifia Lakdawala. Over to you, DTM Alifia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our ever charming Area 17 Director, so well eloquated, Toastmaster Prince. Thank you for conducting this show so well today. Members of District 20, this was a small attempt to empower you all for the upcoming contest season. My wholehearted gratitude to the 4 presenters today who have taken that extra effort and given their best over the years, what they have done in Toastmasters, the experiences, what they have shared. I think this is the most richest education or knowledge we can learn or they can impart us with. So thank you, trainers. My gratitude to our first trainer, Toastmaster Madhvi Tiwari, followed by DTM Geeta Panachami, DTM Ahmed Rizvi, and our ever sweet DTM Rohana Akil. Thank you. I was not able to log in early because of my work commitment, but I came and I've been hearing very good comments that y'all were excellent and members have really benefited with this particular event. The contest is a vast, vast arena. I mean, to understand this, we did a small attempt today. Members, if y'all have any more queries, any more questions, y'all can send to our contest coordinators, DTM Ahmed Rizvi and DTM Rohana. We have already sent emails to the entire district, especially to the presidents and the VP Education, the area directors and the division directors, informing them about the contest protocol. Entire contest material required for online contest is available with the contest coordinators. We are working on a pool of judges where y'all can get the best judges across District 20 and beyond. So do get in touch with us for the upcoming contest season so we can support you in whatever way we can. And let's ensure quality contest beginning right from the club all the way up till DTAC. This is what we are aiming this year as District 20, and let the deserving winner take the raise the cup this year. So thank you once again to everybody. If there is any questions, y'all are free to reach out. Toastmaster Vishwanath.
That's I just put off the video because she was there also.
Would you like to say something? I think everybody has said that he was perfect as a timer. So thank you. Kudos to you for a job well done. Thank you. Thank you to our Chief Sergeant at Arms who opened this meeting, Toastmaster Mariam, and our Zoom moderator, Toastmaster Faisal, and our PRM who was in the house managing the live streaming on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, and we will keep in touch. If y'all feel that y'all need another training or anything, do write in, do get in touch with us. We will organize something much better or, more in detail, in particular to each contest category if required. Thank you. We sign off now. Thank you. I'll keep it open. Let's take a group photograph, everybody, before we end this session. I would request everybody to start their videos, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, PQD. Thanks for all of the team. It was, I think, great performance as usual.
Thank you. Thank you, CGD.
Yeah, it's a wonderful session today.
That's nice. That's great to hear from our members. Thank you. Can we have our MC, our DTM Rohana, our PRM? Let's take a group photograph, quick one. Smile, 1, 2, 3. I forgot to mention we had a backup timer, Toastmaster Siggy. Thank you for starting your video, Toastmaster Siggy, so I could see you. Thank you so much for being there as a backup timer. One more.
Thank you so much, PQD.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being there. Thank you. I'll end the meeting now. Thank you.